guys, and welcome back to Cobra Vids. In this video we're going to be working on part 2 of the 2013 Avenger. Dun, 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 Avenger! Sounds like a cool car, huh? Like it's going to go out and attack the world and it's going to avenge. Anyway, back to reality. Okay, so this is going to be part 2, and we're going to finish redoing the oil cooler area, and then we're going to work over on that side, and I've already recorded some of it, but we're going to start removing the pieces so that we can get the water pump fixed. But I figured we'll go ahead and take care of this intake and everything, and right before we start putting on the big piece, the big boy, we'll go ahead and take care of that, and then I'll film the rest. I'll cut it together, chop, 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 cut, cut, and it's going to look great. You won't miss a beat. Well, if you blink, because this is a pretty quick and easy job. I was shocked and amazed at how quick and easy this job was. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get out the new part. The new part that came so that we can compare, make sure that we ordered correctly. Boy, that would suck if I didn't order correctly, wouldn't it? Well, we'll have to go check the mail because I think the oil sending unit I bought is in the mail. And the reason why I bought the oil sending unit, I don't know if I showed you in part 1, but you know, it had a little sign like it's been replaced before. That might be stock, I don't know, but it looked a little weird, and plus it twisted, and there's like silicone coming out of here, almost like someone tried to fix a leak. I know this isn't where oil was leaking. It was leaking, just in case you didn't watch part 1, it was leaking from these O-rings because all this is deteriorated around here. This is very brittle plastic, and it was leaking from the seals here, and I'm almost positive of that. This is where the oil filter goes. We got a Mopar factory OEM oil filter to go into the new one. I don't care if there's one already in there. We're going to put the factory one in there instead. So I'm going to go grab the new part. Be right back. Okay guys, here's the new part. If you're ordering a part and it's in a sealed bag, try to compare the parts in the enclosed packaging so that you don't cut anything open, and you might void any chance of returning it if you happen to get the wrong part or you ordered the wrong part. This one, luckily, comes in a zipper lock. You know, the greatest thing about working on cars is when you get the parts in, you know, boxes come in from eBay and Rock Auto and everything, you start thinking, man, this is like Christmas. You know, I'm getting my toys. Alrighty, here's the new part, duh, right? Okay, we got the small little hole on the bottom, big hole on the top, small hole on the bottom, big hole on the top. Perfect. That's a good one there. Okay, so we got the large filler hole. Well, that's not the filler hole. That's probably the return to dump the oil, because I'm sure the oil comes through here, gets filtered, and then dumps back into the crankcase right there, out with no pressure or lighter pressure or some pressure. I don't know. I don't pretend to know Dodges. But anyway, there's an O-ring here, here, and here. Here, here, and here, and then one over here, one over here. Oh man, see how much that bulges out? That's all the way in there. And then you see this one over here. See how flat that is? Holy moly! No wonder this thing leaked. And we're gonna go ahead and look at the pieces. Let me see if I can get it to focus a little better. All right. See how these pieces, these sleeves here, are in perfect shape, and they're even with the case. Well, when you come down here, you can see that that's gone, and it's gone up here. So definitely this is where it was leaking oil, and you can tell, you know, not so much over here, not so much over here, but it's all over here. So, and it looks like the bolt patterns are the same. And over there. Okay, looks good. We got a water port. We got a water port right here that we're going to have to exchange the hose over. I'm going to have to look at this hose real carefully and make sure this hose is not leaking at all. That's a water line. And everything else looks good. This is a factory part right there. This here is not aftermarket. But the factory part's like $600. Holy crap, I'm not kidding, man. $600 for that. $100. Comes with all the seals. I don't know if it has a filter in there yet. I haven't removed that piece. But it also comes with all the intake O-rings. If these were head gaskets, I would buy Fel-Pro instead of trusting what came with them. But these are just vacuum seals to seal up the intake. So I'm going to go ahead and use these. No big deal at all. I think they'll work out just fine. We'll get to these in just a moment when we start putting the intake back on. But the first thing we have to do is we have to get this on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off the cap before we put it on there so I don't forget. And I want to see what kind of filters in there, if any, and get the Mopar in there so we can continue. As soon as I get the temp sending unit, which was working just fine, and it is not spinning, we're going to reuse that. We're going to reuse this hose as long as this hose is good. If not, oh boy, we're in trouble. But anyway, I'm going to swap that hose over, check it, swap it over, swap that sensor over here, check the filter. We'll be right back in a flash. And if questioning how you get these off, what I would probably do is before you unbolt this, go ahead and remove this from here so the mounting hardware can hold it still so you can break that loose. If I knew that this piece was bad, I would have probably taken that off to start so I didn't have to do it off the vehicle. But either way, I'll even put it in a vise if I have to. All right, be back in a flash, guys. Okay, guys, I got it off. This is the temp sending unit. As you can see, I started stripping it out. So what I had to do is I had to get the... If you know what that means, then I don't have to tell you. But just in case you don't know what means, that's an impact gun. And I was able to get a 6.19 millimeter socket on there. And with just a little bit of hammering, it came right off. And now I went ahead and put some Teflon tape on there so that when I screw it in there, it seals up those threads nice and neat. Now, I will not use the impact to put it back on. That there I can use just a normal ratchet, maybe even a wrench. Well, ratchet because of those. So, and just keep in mind when you are wrapping Teflon tape, you want to wrap it the same direction that it screws in. So I wrapped it around this way. Started it here and started around here, then went under and around. So that when I twist this on, it's not going to grab it and pull it off. It's actually going to lay in there better, and it's going to be a better seal, and it won't pull all this Teflon off. I learned my lesson on that. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get this back on there, and when we finish swapping everything, we'll be right back. Okay, guys, we got the new water temp sending unit on here. Well, I haven't gone to the mailbox for this one, but I'll go ahead and get that taken care of. And now we have to remove the cap here. Okay, I just want to show you, this is a really quality part here. It came with a brand new filter, but like I said, since we already have a Mopar OEM filter, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the box of the Mopar so that when he changes oil next, he can go ahead and use this as long as everything's going good and he has good oil pressure. The reason why we bought the Mopar is because, as some of you may know, that when you use a generic or aftermarket cheapy oil filter, sometimes the oil pressure doesn't build up properly. And that's one of the things he had, was an oil pressure issue. So when he was buying a couple parts, I thought, let's go ahead and do the thermostat. Let's do this. And put factory equipment back in. But anyway, go ahead and get that in there, get that part on there, be right back. All right, guys, on the left here is the Mopar filter. And this is the part that came, or this is the filter that came with it. The only difference is color, and it looks like the filter material is a little fatter, a little beefier. And you really can't see the inner core in the new one, or the Mopar one, as you can the aftermarket one. Do you see that? Because it's not an optical illusion. Those rings are actually in there. You see them down there? So we're actually seeing through the filter material, and we're seeing the inner core, the inner plastic piece that holds it together. And you could just barely make it out here, but that is much more visible. So that right there tells me that the Mopar has a denser filter and is probably going to do a better job and provide better oil pressure. Okay, going to get it in. We already got the oil sending unit in there. We got the water temp sending unit there. We're almost ready to install this baby. We got a little bit of work to do to that. We'll be right back with that. Okay, so we have this part set over safely on the side where it's going to roll off and fall down in there and whatever. But we'll just ignore it over there. Whoa, too bright. Bright light. All right. All right, you see all the gunk and stuff that is on the intake pieces here. Well, that stuff is going to have to be cleaned off before we put new gaskets on. This area down here, this was really bad. So you can see a little green there. So water was leaking out here. Maybe this is where it was leaking its water, maybe not. But I have cleaned the insides of these contactors. These, I believe, are the knock sensors, and they were completely covered in oil. And I cleaned both the female and male sides of it so that they could mate up beautifully. That side's all nice and clean too. And it's dry, so it's not going to have any shorting or anything. And if everything goes well, this will eventually dry up the rest of the way. I sucked probably a half quart of oil out of all of this here. And it's looking pretty good. But I also have to take some fine steel wool and just lightly clean all these parts up so that when the new seals go on, they go on solid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first clean up these areas, get these plugged back in with some gel on them so that they have a good connection. And once we get some oh God, I always have a problem saying that word. Oh boy, I was wrong. Dielectric grease up there will keep corrosion from building up on those, and it'll keep them connected nice and solid, so we won't have any loose connections on those knock sensors, which I believe that's what those are. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get those circular mounting points all cleaned up. We'll be right back and show you what it looks like with the piece mounted. All right, fellas, or ladies, for those ladies that are mechanically inclined. You see how I clean those up? Those two there are water ports because they had like what looked like rust deposits around on the inner side of them. I might be wrong, but it really looked like rust deposits. And we are all cleaned up now. I did not use steel wool because of how compact it is and the chance of getting the small fibers down in those oil holes, which could be tragic. I went ahead and did this. I took this pencil, this flat pencil here, carpenter pencil, and I rolled up the sandpaper nice and tight, and I laid it flat on them and just sanded them down until they were nice, clean, and smooth. Now I feel confident that when these O-rings make contact, it's going to seal up. So I'm going to get those plugs plugged up, and these are pretty simple and self-explanatory. They're right here. I'm going to go ahead and get this one done first. And these are all cleaned up, so I shouldn't have... Whoops. What I'm going to do first, though, is I'm going to put the... retainer clips back on these, and I'll show you how they go. These just clip down in there like that, and I should be able to slide it in there, and they lock into place. Make sure that that is down. Bam. I popped them out, but all you have to do is push it down, and then the plug will come off. I couldn't see because it was all caked up, so I just popped that up. So that's how they actually go on. You just push them down, and they pop out. Take this baby. See? There we go. That's how those go in there, and we have to tuck these down around here like this so that they don't get in the way of the bolts. Okay. Here is the zip cord for the water hose. Okay, so now we're going to get this piece laid down in there. We're going to snug them up by hand, and then we're going to go double check torque specs, and we're going to torque them down to spec. Be right back. All right, guys, this piece is all torqued down. In order to get that circular thing with the O-ring on the outside, in order to get that to seat, I had to give it a little oomph right here. Just a real light tapping just to get it worked down into that sleeve. And you got to make sure that you don't pinch that O-ring. You know, it gets pulled up and out and pinched off, and then you'd be buying a whole new set, which is like 40 bucks local at the local store. But anyway, we are ready to continue. This is all torqued down, and I torqued it at 80 inch-pounds. I almost said foot-pounds. 80 inch-pounds, and that's the closest that I could get looking at the internet. I'm not quite sure. I just took the intake bolt torques and I went with that. And when I tightened everything up to where I thought was good, you know, just by feel, I put the torque wrench on there and they turned just a little bit and clicked. So I'm very happy with that. I think they're all good. And when you're tightening this thing down, you want to go back in zigzag pattern and take it down slowly so it compresses all those O-rings perfectly, because you don't want this thing leaking. Definitely don't. And you'll know right away if it's leaking, because the oil is going to fill up that trough and then start spilling out on your transmission and dumping that way and creating a huge old mess. But let's not think about that tragedy right now. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and plug up these two things here. We're going to put some Dialect grease on them and so that they stay nice and solid. Be right back. Alright guys, so I've got the intake gasket surfaces all cleaned up and ready to go. These things are plugged back in. They're coated with electric grease. And now we can clean up the underside of the intake and get the seals installed and get this baby going. Okay, here's the underside of the intake. Here's where the oil filter holder thing here goes. And these are the injectors. So when you're cleaning these, make sure that you don't have any gunk on these injector holes here. They're just fine little holes that squirt out a mist of fuel. Make sure that there's no debris in here. And when you're pulling these old gaskets out, make sure you're not dropping anything in here, because as soon as you flip it over, it's going to go right into your valves and into your combustion chambers. But anyway, everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and put the new seals on there. Be right back. Okay, guys, the seals are in here. These feel more like Victor Wren's seals rather than Felpro. If you've dealt with gaskets a long time, you'll really be able to feel the difference. And plus, Felpro is usually bright blue. These are like a gray, which I've seen Victor gaskets be this color in the past, but I could be wrong. So I really don't know what brand they are, but that's just my guess. I've used Victor, I think the Rhines or Wrens. I've never heard it said, I've just seen it. I've used tons of those gaskets, never had an issue with them that I know of. So, you know, I'm not worried. And plus, like I said, these are easy to get to. So if we have any issues, it won't be that bad of a deal to tear it back down and put Felpro in there. We're going to get this mounted back down. We're going to go 71 inch-pounds to tighten up these bolts. Okay, the intake is actually torqued down right now, 75 around there inch-pounds. And now we're going to go ahead and start getting the fuel injector cables in here, and there's a few broken zip cord things that I'm going to show you how to fix properly. Okay guys, there's two different types of zip cords that we found on here. There's this type that stretches over and grabs onto a wire harness. This one I broke. So let's get that to focus. We take a normal zip cord, okay, and I am going to feed this up underneath this old one here. I'm going to get it, oops, I'm going to get it through here. I need my other hand. All right. Since this is a little smaller of a zip cord than the factory one, it's going to actually work out just fine. We used that to loop the zip cord through, and then we just tightened it down. And bam, there we go. We have a repaired zip cord. We just clipped that off there, and it's fixed. Okay, that's style number 1 that I broke. This one is still good. This one here is still good. So we just bring this up here, and I will zip that up in just a second. But the other type are these guys right here. And we really can't do it like we did before. It just will not work. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our clips. We're going to finish pulling that out of there. Okay. Now what we're going to do, oh, we have one more over here that we need to remove just like that. Okay. And we're going to take the other one and we're going to get all of the clips back in here so that we know where everything's going to lay. Get the coil packs, all the injectors in, all the coil packs. I'm sorry about this going in and out of focus. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if I got sweat on the lens or what, but it's not wanting to focus too good. Okay, we got one more injector. Okay, that's popped down. This one's actually good, so we'll go ahead and there we go. Okay, that zipped just like that. Everything's all snapped in. Now to repair this, okay, as you could probably see, now I'm going to get the tip of this through the hole. Okay, so I got this one set up and I got this one set up right here. Okay, so all we're going to do is just wrap it around the wiring harness. Wrap it around there, nice and snug, and it's in there. Now these things are not going to roll around in here, bounce around. And I know what some people will say, why don't you just go to the dealership and buy the factory ones? Well, I could, but I'm trying to save this kid some money, and I'm trying to do things correctly, but without spending a bunch of money that they don't have. I mean, you know kids, I'm sure, you know. Kids don't have a lot of money when they're first starting out. So, and that looks good. That I am very happy with that there. Let's make sure that everything's plugged in here. All right. Don't forget the fuel line. Okay, there we go. That's attached. Yeehaw, guys. All right, so the rest of the stuff has to wait until I get the upper intake on. So I'm going to put this portion of this video on pause, and I'm going to do part 3, and that is the water pump and thermostat. So we're going to go ahead and put this on pause. This is ready for the upper intake and connect all the little hoses and shit and get it finalized. But I don't want to do that so that I don't have any of that in my way when I remove the motor mount, because that's something that has to happen. So I've got to support the engine, bust the motor mount loose, and then I should be able to continue on.